slow. Hopefully didn't scare too many people about the practical session today, but we'll see how we go. So I'll bring the book. So let me remember what page we said we're going to do the practical slide today. So let me just open this up. Okay. I'll probably try to grab somebody as a volunteer just to get the ball rolling. Any volunteers? There's only 3 or 4 or 5, I guess.
Assalamu alaikum, sir. I'll start, inshallah.
Yeah, go for it, bro. Bismillah.
Okay, Bismillah. The most prominent mistakes which occurs when pronouncing the throat letters, the letter Hamza, the mistake made when pronouncing it, number one, making it heavy as in asabi'ahum. Number two, making tasheel in it where there should be no tasheel as in ya ayyuha. Number three, weakening its sound when stopping as in sama'i.
Oh, can you hear me, bro? Just a big quick question to everybody else. Does anybody know what tasheel means? Feel free to give me an example. Like, anybody else know what tasheel means? Okay. Anybody doesn't know what tasheel means?
Yes, Ustad.
Yes, we
Forget.
we don't know. And sorry, which page we are?
96.
96. Okay, thank you.
So here he was giving an example of making a common mistake that happens is making tasheel on the word ya ayyuha. So I just wanted to double check to see if everybody understands what the word tasheel means.
Is it more like lengthening it?
Oh no, it's in this case it's tasheel comes from the word sahl, which means to make easy. So what you're doing is you're intentionally not pronouncing it clearly. So for example, like you got the word gonna and going to. So gonna is the easier version of going to, right?
Yep.
So it's the same thing happens with Arabic. Now, some Arabs, and you'll find this with other qira'at, and by tasheel, I mean, don't get me wrong, tasheel is allowed, but not in the case of Hafs, the narrow recitation. So rather than saying, ya ayyuha, they'll say ya ayyuha. You see what I mean? So you got ya ayyuha, which is the correct way of saying it, and this is how Hafs did it with tahqiq, like clear pronunciation. There's ya ayyuha. You see what I mean?
Yes.
So that's just tasheel for everybody. So what I'm the reason why I had to stop brother here is this doesn't normally happen. However, I've realized when you're reading really fast, especially it happens in Taraweeh or Ramadan, some people can actually really make tasheel of it, and that shouldn't happen. So the most common form of it happening is when you're reading really fast. So just keep an eye on that. Tasheel is you can't make tasheel. It has to be tahqiq, which is clear pronunciation. Yeah, ayyuha. Yeah, carry on, bro.
Ustad, can you please explain number one as well? How we can make it, they mentioned making it heavy. Asabi'ahum means someone.
Yes.
Yeah, just to clarify this
Hamza,
point.
right? So that's the Hamza, right? If I'm correct.
Yes, Hamza, yeah.
Yeah, so in this case, you pronounce it. So I'll do it here. They'll say rather than say you got asabi'ahum, and there's asabi'ahum. So what's the difference between asabi'ahum and أصابعهم.
Making it heavy. Yeah.
Yeah, so what in the wrong case, I didn't say it as I said it as oh. So that's what happens, you know. If you ever have any doubts about the Hamza, break it down into 3-letter form. U, E. If it's oh, it means you're pronouncing something in between a dhamma and a fatha. So that's basically the trick that I'll tell everybody to find out if you're reading it correctly or not. Break it into fatha, dhamma, kasra, and say it straight away immediately. So just to keep an eye out. So yeah, we'll carry on inshallah.
Okay, Jazakallah. Number 3, weakening its sounds when stopping, as in asama, means maybe we are missing the sound of Hamza here. Asama.
Oh yeah. So here, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. They'll be saying something along the lines of rather saying as-sama, they'll say as-sama, and you know it's happy. Yeah, basically you make it so weak that it disappears. So the trick is you need to say it really clearly and stress, you know, just make it clear, you know, don't make tasheel, which is make it less of a ha, and don't make it disappear altogether. That's what they mean.
Right, okay. Jazakallah.
Right.
Next, ha. Number 1, making it heavy, as in Allahu an-nahara.
Oh yeah, perfect. Yeah. So that's a classical example. People saying yughshi laylan nahar, nahar. So here we do the same thing. Ha, hu, he. If I'm saying it ha, then obviously there's something that I've introduced. So, you know, again, if you hear this, and it happens a lot in Ijaza and outside of Ijaza classes, you'll hear the Sheikh say make tahqiq of the ha, which means make the fatha a stronger fatha. يغشي الليل النهار. Yeah, jazakallah khair.
Number 2, weakening it due to exaggeration in the parting of the vocal cord, as in ihdina.
Weakening it. Let me try to find the example in Arabic. Just okay. ينضع صوتها عند الوقف. Oh no, that's الوقف. Sorry. ضعف مبالغ في تباعد الوترين. Oh yeah. My understanding, an incorrect way of saying it is you don't want to say ihdina, to say ihdina. But again, they're tied in with obviously the Hamza al-Wasl at the beginning. So yeah, it's again, it's all to do with clear pronunciation. That's all that point's saying.
Number 3, not clarifying it when it occurs beside another ha or ha, as in jibahuhum wasabbihu layla.
Yes, so here an incorrect way of saying jibahuhum. So here I'm clarifying hum. An incorrect way, it's like making tasheel, for example, making it easy. You probably say jibahuhum, ho. You see what I mean? So this tends to be an Arab mistake as well. So you have to like really get it out. Jibahuhum. There is other examples as well. You'll find that sometimes with the wa is next to another wa from another word. So just be really careful about that one. Yeah, next one.
Number 4, weakening it when stopping, as in fa'aluhu or fa'aluhu.
Yeah, so here the best example I can tell people is what happens when you stop, you make sukoon. So what happens, there's nothing wrong with making a sukoon if you stop on something like fa'aluhu. But what you really need to clarify, especially if you're getting an exam, is you need to let the hams out because the ha is from the hams letters. So I'll tend to over exaggerate. I'll say fa'aluh. You see what I mean? Let the air out. So just remember that. It's like, especially when it comes to waqf, just let an extra air out. Same thing with maliyah. You don't want to say fa'aluh or maliyah because it sounds like there is no ha. So you say maliyah, fa'aluh, and it's mostly to do with the hams. Awesome. Jazakallah.
Next is ayn, pronouncing it as an underdetermined sound, more similar to a heavy alif as in na'budu.
Yeah, so you don't want to say it as na'budu. Na, it's like just make it clear. Na'budu. Yeah. Next one.
Number 2, cutting off its sounds when pronouncing it with a sukun as in ya'malun.
Yes. So this one, as we said, the tricky thing about the ayn, it's not from the huruf al-shiddah, the strong letters, and it's not from the light letters. So it's from the huruf bayniyah. The bayniyah in between letters we said are from the family of Lin Umar. So what happens, this is a tricky part. To get the ayn correctly, the epiglottis, as you saw the thing in the middle of the throat, that has to shift to the back of the throat. And as we know, ayn is a throat letter. Now, it has, in order to get the ayn correctly, 70% of the epiglottis needs to be closed, which means that air has to go through the ayn because it's not a hams letter. And at the same time, you need to kind of close the throat to get the ah sound. If you stress it too much, what happens, not only will you make the sifa incorrect, but you can accidentally cut the air. So you don't say ya'malun, and you just want to let it flow. Ya'malun. So just remember that it can happen quite a lot. And to troubleshoot this one, when you're teaching somebody, just remember if they're over stressing, either you're saying it too strong or they're not letting out enough air with the ayn, or could be both. Just remember that.
Number 3, making it heavy as in asaw.
Yeah, so here, mashallah, say correct with asal. You don't want to say it as asal. So same thing. If you're ever suspecting it, say a-ru-i, asal. If you say a-ru-i, asal, asal, then obviously, if it sounds different, then it means you were saying it incorrectly. All good.
Number 4, pronouncing it similar to a hamza as in Wallahu ya'lamu wa antum la ta'lamun.
Oh, yes. So here pronouncing it similar to Hamza. Hamza, as we know, is a strong letter. And it happens when you have strong tahqiq, and it's a strong closing of the vocal chords with a sharp burst of air, like ah. You can't get the ah if you don't close your vocal cords and if it doesn't have a strong flow of air. Same thing can happen with the ah, but what you're doing is rather, because Hamza is at the bottom of the throat, ah is the middle of the throat. If you cut out the air from the epiglottis or the middle of the throat, it has a similar effect to closing and opening of the vocal cords really quickly. That's what the sheikh means. So here again goes back to the amount of air. Don't overstress the ayn. Let the air flow naturally. Ya'lamu. You don't want to say ya'lamu. Ya'lamu. So there's something to remember. Again, it's to do with the air and how strong you're pronouncing it.
Next letter is ha. Number 1, replacing it by a kha or ha by non-Arabs as in alhamdu, like we are reading alhamdu,
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
or alhamdu,
Yes.
someone. Yeah.
Perfect.
Number 2, weakening its whisper as in ar-Rahman ar-Rahim.
Yeah. So you get people sometimes they'll probably like stress it less. Say Ar-Rahman Rahim. You probably heard that as well. So yeah, next one.
Number 3, not clarifying it, especially when it occurs beside ayn, as in fasfah anhum.
Yes. Yeah. So what happens, because they're throat letters, some people end up combining the two letters together. So what happens? They'll make a dram. You want to say fasfah an. Just remember to cut it. You say the letter, you cut the air, then you jump to the next one. Again, this will make more sense. You'll see it a lot in the practical lessons, in practical classes that we have. And again, if you don't make this mistake normally, pay close attention to this when you're reciting really fast. Again, that's a really big thing to remember. If you're reading really fast, you can accidentally sneak it in. So just remember that. Awesome. Next one.
Next letter is Ghain. Number one, mixing its sounds with the qaf, as in ghayril maghdubi.
Yeah, so this is a tricky one. I don't know how to explain this incorrectly, but you feel free to jump in as well, correct me as well. Sometimes you hear people saying "gayirin maghdubi," they'll sound like a ga or gayiri, as opposed to gayiri with a ga. So they end up basically using less of their throat. So again, feel free to let me know other ones that you heard as well, because I could be incorrect, and mashallah, we have a lot of cultures on board. You guys might be seeing it differently for me as well, which is correct, So next one.
Number two, merging it with the qaf, as in la tuzigh qulubana.
Oh yes. So yeah, idgham. Just make sure you we call it takhlis, خلص الحرف, or finish pronouncing the first letter before you jump to the next one. Because they'll say, look, Ain is a throat letter, Qaf is close to the throat, I'll just put them together. So even though they're close to each other, our job is to make tartil, which obviously means you can't mix the letters together. So yeah, jazakallah khair.
Number three, replacing it by a kha, as in yaghsha. Means we are like reading like yaghsha.
Yep, that could happen. Yep.
Yeah. Number four, giving it a qalqala, as in al maghdubi.
Yeah, so you don't want to say maghdubi. So maghdubi. Yep.
Number five, exaggeration in making it heavy when it has a kasra, as in min ghillin.
Allah, that's actually a good one.
Min ghillin.
غل. It's easier to pronounce it as غل. من غل. Maybe that's an incorrect way of doing it.
Yeah, looks like, yeah.
Allah. So go next one.
Okay. Next letter is kha. Number one, not making it heavy, as in khalidina.
Yeah, so you don't want to say it as khalidina. It's kha. So we'll cover this later, and the different levels of, as you already saw earlier, we have tafkhim, which is the heavy letters, and we have different levels of tafkhim. You don't want to make it really light. Some people say, "Oh, this letter is so harsh. I might as well just take it easy when I'm pronouncing it, because it's always going to come out mufakham," which is true to a certain extent. However, you don't want to make it so easy to the point that it just becomes loses the character. So this one's like Khalidin. So just remember that. Next one.
Next, exaggeration in making it heavy when it has a kasra, as in wakhifa, wakhifatan.
Yeah, so this is probably more along the advanced pronunciation side of things. So this is, you really pay attention to this and the ijaza side of things. For example, here it says exaggeration, making it heavy when it has a kasra. So you don't want to say khifa. It's easier to go with khifa. So I'll give you an example. There's 5 different letters, 5 different levels of tafkhim. We'll cover this later on, inshallah, in the course. But basically, the highest level is if it has a letter of tafkhim and it has, you could say, alif afterwards, like khalidin. That's number 1, heaviest. Here in this case, if a kha or letter mufakham has a kasra, we take that into account. It's still heavy, it's still mufakham, but you can't pretend it's the same level as khalidin. So basically here what you're trying to do is, if the letter is heavy, just remember the letters next to it dictate how heavy it is as well. So you can't say khifa, you have to say khifa. Well, khifa still sounds heavy, but it's the lightest martaba, or the lightest level out of tafkhim. So anyone has any questions about the levels of tafkhim with the example of Khalidin and Khifa? Okay, sounds pretty good. We'll carry on, inshallah.
Next is the most prominent mistakes which occurs when pronouncing the kaf. Number one, pronouncing it similar to al kaf, as in qalu. Either we are reading like kalu.
Yeah.
Yeah. Next is exaggeration in weakening its heaviness when it has a kasra until it changes into a kaf, as in wabil haqqi anzalnahu wabil haqqi nazal.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. Next is changing it into a G, as in qalilun.
Yeah. So you get some Arab accents that say Galil, for example. That's what they mean. So
Yeah. Okay. Number four, mixing its sounds with a ghain, as in al qadr.
oh yeah. And actually that's a big mistake because qadr means decree. If you say it with a ra, it's gonna sound like ghadr, which is deception. So
Mm,
that's
yeah.
actually I'm testing everybody now. What type of lahan is this? Anybody would like to comment on the type of lahan from memory?
Is it? I don't know why in my head it's called Lahan Jali or the big one. What's that
Perfect.
one for?
No,
Yeah.
perfect. Jazakallah khair.
Lahja
So that's
jaliya.
lahan jali wadih. So it's clear, big lahan, not as opposed to lahan khafi. Lahan jali, as we said, when the mistake is so big, it's you're either making a mistake in the fatha or the letter, and it's obvious. If it's something khafi or mustatir, it's the one that usually it's with regards to tajweed ahkam or advanced tajweed ahkam, and it can only be picked up by a trained listener. So jazakallah khair, man. That's good. So yeah, carry on,
Next
bro.
is whispering it, as in qalu.
Whispering it. Oh, I think he means hams. Hamsuha, yes. So he is supposed to say as qa. There is no q. You see what I mean? There's no air coming afterwards.
Yeah, yeah.
So just clearly just pronouncing it as qa and making it sharp. Next up.
The most prominent mistakes which occurs when pronouncing the kaf. Number one, exaggeration in its hums when it has haraka, as in fakanu kuvirat.
Yeah, so here ka is from the letters of hams. So you don't want to say fakhanu, fakh. So you see how the air is coming out? You're always going to get a little bit of air coming out. Fakanu. You don't want to say fakanu because it's like adding a hat at the end. It's again, some of these examples they might not make sense. They might make sense to you maybe straight away because of something that you can say culturally. Sometimes it might make sense to you 5 or 10 years down the track when you see a student from another culture, and then subhanAllah, be like, oh, that's what I was talking about. So don't freak out if these things don't make sense immediately. But obviously, the reason why we're using these examples are to help us troubleshoot for other students when we're fixing their Qur'an, inshallah. So yeah, go ahead, bro.
Neglecting its whispering characteristics, especially when it is a sakin, as in ذكرك يكتبون صدرك وزرك.
Yeah. So here I'll give you an example about what he means in sukoon. When it comes to sukoon, I'm definitely more than happy for you to over exaggerate the hams to let out the sifa. So what do I mean? So I'll give you an example here. You got ذكرك يكتبون. So you see يكتبون. I didn't say يكتبون. So you see, I didn't say يكتبون. I let out air behind after the cat. يكتبون. صدرك. So you see, I didn't say صدرك. صدرك. That's why we let out the air out, and it makes it hams is the quality of the kaf. If you don't let out the hams, like صدرك, what letter can it be confused with? وزرك. What's the closest letter to kaf?
Qaf.
Exactly. Yeah. So what happens is I tell people, look, this is the defining characteristic of a kaf from a qaf. So just let it out for a kaf. It's even stronger if it has a shadda. And you might hear, and mashallah, Sheikh Ashaka Shakamini does this really well with this pronunciation. He'll recite, Bismillah, ممن هو منها في شك. You see how it comes out? So just remember that for the sukoon. Inshallah, carry on, bro.
Pronouncing it similar to al-qaf as in وَتَرَكُوكَ قَائِمًا وَإِذَا السَّمَاءُ كُشِطَتْ.
Oh yeah, I can see it. You don't want to say وَتَرَكُوكَ قَائِمًا, or so you don't want to say سَمَاءُ قُشِطَتْ, just because of ease of convenience, because they're next to each other. Just differentiate. Jazakallah khair.
Next is the most prominent mistakes which occurs when pronouncing the jim. Number one, pronouncing it softly as in ja'alu wa jannatin.
Yep.
Number two, mixing its sounds which that of al-dal as in yajma'un.
يجمعون. Oh yeah. So here it could happen if somebody ever exaggerates the jim. يجمعون, يجمعون. So just make it, obviously stay with strong emphasis, but don't overdo it. Next one.
Mixing its sounds with that of asheen as al-mujahideen.
Yeah, this one I'm not going to demonstrate, but basically you might get some people, because the jeen and the sheen come from similar places, the middle of the tongue. What they'll do unintentionally is they'll merge one letter with another. And again, these mistakes will happen if the makharij or the sifat, they are very close to one another and you overstress them. So just remember that. Just take that into account. Next one.
Changing it into a ya as in al-masjid.
This is probably, I'm guessing, more local to do with maybe cultural accent. People might say al-masjid. Sounds a bit weird. What they tend to do subconsciously, and what I think they're trying to do is, the reason why the ya comes up, it comes because they substitute the ya for the kasra. This doesn't make sense now, but it'll make sense later on. But yeah, it's like that's when you actually sit down and explain to the person, look, this is how you say it. This is how a kasra sounds like. Masjid with a kasra. And obviously, that, to me, that's how I personally see it. It's actually you're troubleshooting the pronunciation of the kasra, not the ya. So they're probably saying ya because it's easier to say than jim with a kasra. So that's what you probably need to do with them. So, Allah knows best. Next one.
Number 5, pronouncing it like the letter G as in al-hajju. Al-hajj.
Right. Again, yeah, you get a few. This is a few Arab dialects are guilty of this. They'll say hajj, yeah, which is perfectly fine in normal Arabic speech, but not in Tajweed. So, next one.
The most prominent mistakes which occurs when pronouncing the sheen. Number 1, weakening its sounds due to a weakness of passing on its articulation point as in ishtaru.
Yep. So again, it's like you don't want to say it too weak. Next one.
Keeping its sounds confined within the mouth due to not parting a little between the jaw, so the sound cannot get out as in ishtaru.
Yeah, so here basically, I'll just give you a short example. So I'm just translating it from the Arabic here. So just to remember with the sheen, again, this might not be a big deal right now. This would be definitely a big deal if you're reading fast and if you're not, say, moving your mouth. So with the sheen, you need to kind of exercise the jaw to let out the air. So it's not just like SH. Yeah, it starts off like a SH and then you let out the air gradually. So you don't want to say it in a lazy manner or just say it really quickly, because the letter sheen can get eaten up. It's not like a hams letter, for example. Although, I mean, I'm sorry, I don't want to confuse you. It is part of the letters of the hams, but what you don't want to do is you want to pronounce it clearly and openly as opposed to eating it up. That's what the Sheikh says. Next one, inshallah.
Bringing its articulation point a little forward from the middle of the tongue, so that a sound blurred with the sound of the letter seen is emitted, as in minash shaytani.
Yeah, so here basically you're pronouncing it, what the Sheikh says is you're reading with the wrong articulation point. As we know, the huruf al-safir, they're more at the front of the mouth. So it ends up being Satan. Sounds a bit crazy. I do hear it sometimes, very rarely though. That's basically pronouncing from the wrong pronunciation point. So just be careful.
Making it heavy when it occurs beside a heavy letter, as in shatata.
Yeah, so here when you're reading it, you're saying it as shatata. You know, it's sha. You don't want to say shatata, sha. So again, this happens quite frequently if you're having a really heavy letter next to the light letter, especially when الطباق and الاستعلاء come into play. We talked about that previously with the and the letters that have these properties. They can easily eat up. This is not just the case for the sheen, but it's for every other letter. Just be careful if a heavy letter of that characteristic, or ص, and it has a إطلاق الاستعلاء. Next one.
Mistakes which occurs with pronouncing the non-lengthening ya, exaggeration in pressing on the middle of the tongue when pronouncing it, especially when it has a shadda, as in iyaka, aynama.
Here, I'm just telling people, look, just don't over exaggerate it. So you got aynamas coming out, iyaka. If, as you can see, there's a narrow opening and gap for the air to go through. If you try to exaggerate it and it already has a shadda, you end up having the same problem with the hamza. You pronounce something like a hamza when it's supposed to be a ayn, and otherwise. Subhanallah. Imam al-Jazari quite famously said in his poem, "Bilutfi binutli bila ta'assufi." Basically, meaning here, it's like you're careful with the pronunciation without hurrying it up, which means, just let it naturally flow. It's easier said than done, but it's better demonstrated in the practical Quran classes. So, Jazakallah khair.
Mixing its sounds with a hint of ghunna, as in ad-dunya.
Yeah, Gunna we'll cover later, inshallah. But yeah, just try to stay away from introducing nasal sounds. At the end of the day, it's you're adding another level of complexity that shouldn't be there. I'll grab, inshallah, somebody else from the group. Any other volunteers would like to carry on? Jazakallah khair, bro. From the bod.
Yeah, I will do it.
Go for it.
Yeah, mistakes which occur when pronouncing dod.
Yep.
Number one, changing it to a zo, as in
Yes.
like zalla.
Yep. Here, I'm not talking, and I have to stop here. I'm specifically talking not just to non-Arabs, but Arabs as well. If somebody comes up to me and says, "Look, I heard the Arab guy who's doing this," or even an imam at one point, because unfortunately it can happen. It's like, I heard the Arab guy saying this. The question I'm going to ask, is he a qari or not? Because I can even tell you what country this person comes from. And just to bear in mind, this is the reason why I stopped here is like, why is this guy, throwing a big deal out of this? A lot of people use other incompetent people as excuse as to why they're reading incompetently. The reason why I have to stop you over here is because Imam al-Jazari himself stopped people. And if you memorize his Jazariya, he has a special chapter dedicated to this, talking about how people make mistakes between da and likewise. So please bear in mind, it's very common to hear mistakes from Arabs and non-Arabs with regards to this one. So just remember that. Next one.
Ustad, I have a question regarding this. So normally we heard like the people they recite either in Surah Fatiha, ad-dallin, or zalin. So is it a lahni jali or lahni khafi?
Oh, jelly. Jelly is hick. The reason why I'm saying jelly is hick is because, they've basically swapped the letter for another letter. So that's
Yes.
why.
I
Yeah,
heard
'cause
from someone, they said, okay, both are okay. You can read like zalin. I said, how come, the makhraj is different.
exactly. That's it's pretty obvious. Like if if the makhraj is different, is like Fatiha tends to be generally quite alright, with the exceptions of like Maliki and Maliki Yawmiddin. You might even the most extreme thing you're probably not used to. You probably heard maybe Sheikh Ahmed said in the past, like this is Hukum Ishmam, rather than saying Sirata, say Zirata, for example. But apart from that, they all are agreement with the whole Dalin. The reason why, from I've been told, people get this wrong is from an Arab perspective. This is a big mistake in dialect, and it tends to be common in a certain part of the Middle East. So it's a dialect issue. For non-Arabs, it could be substituting letters for other letters. Because, as you said, if the brother said to you, "This is the excuse I have," you can say both. Then the question is, why can't I say other letters the same? Like substitute other letters for others. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Like tasheel is the most common example, because you get people swapping hamzas and even skipping hamza altogether. Now that's valid under other qira'at, but I still can't do it because of hafs. You see what I mean? So, but no, Jazakallah khair for clarifying it, bro.
Jazakallah.
So one question similar to this one, like whoever says like Zolin or Dolin, they also call like Zaif and Daif, or it's only for Walid Dolin, or everywhere in Quran. Like we know only because of the recitation of or when Imam says. So it
So,
means they follow the same, just for information, like as you said, two
sorry, bro.
categories.
Can you say it again and bring yourself to the mic, because I've got a bit of an issue. I
So
can't
I mean,
hear the mic.
it's
Yeah.
all over the Quran. Like it's God will is replaced with Zor, or just for the all lane. Like it's also like Daif and Zaif, like weak. The Arabic is Daif and Zaif.
Yeah, but I mean, you see what I mean? It's because what happens if we get in that problem? You're swapping za with a va, but then people are saying, why don't we swap zat with something else? So it becomes a whole big mess. You see what I mean?
I see. Okay.
Yeah. So it's it's the same thing. So I tell people, look, the biggest mistake with regards to this, it's probably dialects. We're just taking it easy, and like same thing for my country. We don't say kadhab, we say hada kazab, for example, with a za. But we all know that's incorrect, because if I'm speaking to another Palestinian, he understands where I'm coming from. But when it comes to Quran, it's kind of like, that's why I tell people, look, if we start taking it easy, the question becomes, what else are we going to take easy? So and sometimes I have to admit, I've spoken to some people, there is this whole issue of personal pride, because somebody might be leading salah. Just sick. Yeah. So basically, what happens is that there is an element of pride where Imam gets corrected, and the guy's like, "Oh no, it's perfectly fine." If somebody ever does that, and they're supposed to be an Imam, they will be held accountable of their judgment, trying to answer to Allah, why do you say it this way? So although it sounds really basic sometimes, I do tell people, look, at the end of the day, it just takes practice. I'd rather have somebody say, look, I can't pronounce it correctly, brother. This is something that I'm used to, and just leave it there. But don't make a false sunnah and say, oh, yeah, it's okay, I'll say it anyway. Because that's what used to happen to previous generations and previous nations, That's what makes us different. So Jazakallah khair for pointing that out, man. It's like, it's a really common thing. The people sometimes take these things easy, but, it's I highly advise against it. So
Yeah. So the second mistake is changing into dal, as in tufiduna,
oh, yes. Again.
and yeah. So the third is pronouncing a vocal emptiness, claiming it to make it prolonged, as in Adolin. I actually didn't get it, so just
Oh, yeah.
explain this.
My understanding, I could be wrong, feel free to correct me. I've heard some variations where people, they'll start off with the right letter, and as the mad changes, as the mad carries on, they change the quality. So they'll rather saying, they'll say, you see what I mean?
Ah, I see.
So,
That's
yeah,
right, correct. Yeah.
and when you ask them, what is it? They'll say it's a dot. Then you ask him, why is it changing? So it's even that subhanallah is written down. So that's what the sheikh means. It's kind of like your mouth is changing as you're saying the mad.
Okay. Number 4 is giving it a kalkala, like maybe they will be saying like waqadban.
Yeah, well, qadaba, like that.
Waqadaba.
So, yeah. Next
Number
one.
5, emitting a gunna with it as fadlun, something like that.
That's a hard one actually. I'm trying to see how you could do ghunna and dot at the same time. Fadlun. Yeah, because you got
Yeah,
because you know how we
fadlun.
said
Yeah, it's
yeah
very
because
difficult.
you know how we said we got pardon.
Yeah, I tried. It's very difficult. Like with this one.
Yeah, because you know how we said we have letters with opposites and no opposites. Like ghunna, it requires air going through your nose. Dad requires trapping of the air in the upper roof of the mouth and letting it explode, like blah. It's explosive sound. So I don't know how you could do this and that at the same time, but you hear some weird variations sometimes. So yeah, we'll do the next one.
Number 6, merging it with the following letter as in od, adturra, arratum.
Yeah. So here, basically, you'll say, look, it's too hard. It's too hard for me to say, or rather say itturra. I'll say itturra. So it's just like basically like you're skipping it, basically. Or you may not say the dot, but you say it really lightly, and you're focusing on the tap. By all means, just focus on one letter at a time. So that's what I've got to say. Well, the next one.
Yeah, most prominent mistakes which occur when pronouncing lam. Number 1, making it heavy when it should be light, as in al-latifu.
Sorry, where is this?
Page number
Oh, yeah.
106. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Al-Latif. Yeah, that's incorrect.
So by word is actually latif. So it should be
Yes.
light.
Latif, yeah.
Yeah. And number 2,
Next one.
making it light when it should be heavy. Minallahi.
Yeah. You
Number
don't want to
3.
say it, you can't say it minallahi. So yeah, next one.
Number 3, merging it with the following letter as in anzalnahu wala tuhammilna. Merging it with that.
That's actually a good one. The only way I can see yourself merging it in this case if you don't pronounce the lam fully. So, and this could happen again if you're reading it too fast. So you'll ask people, "Oh, bro, what was this?" And then they'll say, "Oh, yeah, I said it's anzalnahu." They'll read it normally when they read slowly, and when you ask him, "Oh, but I heard it differently when I was praying behind you," they'll say, "Oh, but I was reading fast." That is not an excuse. So, because what happens if you're reading so fast to the point you're dropping ahkam of tajweed that's supposed to be there, then no, that's incorrect pronunciation. There are no ahkam that's supposed to be exactly the same whether or not you're reading slow or reading fast. But if somebody's coming up to you and they're reading fast to the point they are merging letters when they shouldn't, then in that case they're reading incorrectly. So that's the best advice I have for that one. Yeah, next one.
Yeah, number 4, merging the pronounced definite article Allamul Kamariya into the letter Jim as in Al Jibali.
Yeah, so that's basically straight up confusing Qamariya and Shamsiya. You can't say it al-jibalu. It has to be al-jibal. Yeah, next one.
Number 5, mixing is sound with a hint of gunna, as in billahi, billahi.
Yeah, again, it's probably because they're letting out too much air from the nose. Ghunna will cover that specifically in another class, just to explain what it is and what are the rulings. Some people, as Sheikh Ayman Aswad said, they let the tap on fully. It's like when you're supposed to drink from the tap, just turn on and off. Don't go overboard with everything else. So yeah, just a reminder. Got the next one.
Yeah, most common mistakes which occur when pronouncing known. Number 1, not giving its due gunna when stopping on it, as in nasta'inu. And number 2, exaggeration in giving its due gunna when stopping on it, as in the last example. Means not giving due or exaggerating, mean it should be balanced. I mean,
Exactly, yeah.
neither more nor less, right?
Yeah, nasta'in. You don't want to say it as too much or too little. So it's because sounds a bit crazy. Sometimes in recitation, you're getting people saying, "Look, and you'll hear everyone's got their own theory. Sometimes people say, "Oh, Tajweed is about reading slow." So you go, "Oh, that's good." So you start reading slow, and what you don't know is you're making mistakes just really slowly. It's like somebody tells you your driving is bad. What do? It's like if you slow down, you're just driving bad at a slow speed. Same thing, when it comes to this one. You don't want to over or under exaggerate. So if you go nasta'in and then do too much, that's too much. And if you're pronouncing it really soft, that's basically not giving it the sifa. And as we said in the past, noon is from huruf al-bayniyah. It's not too strong and it's not too weak. So likewise, the sifat and the gunna, everything has to be balanced. So yeah, jazakallah khair, man.
Yeah, number 3, giving it a kalkala when it is sakina, as in amta, amta.
Qalqala, you get a lot of people, they'll say ana amta because it makes it easier to pronounce the ayn next to it, so they just bounce off the noon. That's not valid as well.
Making it heavy in words like annara.
Yeah, تفخيمها في النحو. Yeah. So it's supposed to be an-nar, not nar. Yeah.
So a mistake is to make it heavy, right?
Yes. Yeah. You make the noon heavy because the ra afterwards is heavy. So say an-nar. It's supposed to be an-nar. So yeah.
So the same will be there like in Surah Nas, like minar jinnati wan nas, all an-nas, same. The last surah. Qul a'udhu bi rabbin nas.
Yeah, same thing. Nas. It's supposed to be nas, not nas. You hear sometimes you hear people, not too much, saying nas or nar or yeah. So it's just it's coming back to basic. Now, so I know this sounds a bit weird, but people are like, they do get offended when you correct them on the last 20 surahs, and then they'll be like, oh, like say na'budu. They'll say na'budu, no. And then it's like, brother, why are you correcting me? It's like you're trying to compare me to the kids in the Qaida class. And quite frankly, I'm not here to mock you, but the answer is yes, you are reading it like the children. Because quite honestly, if what we tend to do when we learn Tajweed is we can't compartmentalize. So every single person that I usually teach in adults, they've had some sort of Arabic background or Qaida at least. The problem isn't about learning Qaida. The problem is that we don't apply it to other forms of education. So it's like when you're in the kids' class, people will learn how to say qaida, they'll say ba, bu, bi, a, u, e. Okay, that's good. I finished. I'm 6 years old. I'll never pick this book up ever again. It's like, no, you will pick this up for the rest of your life. So it's just carrying on with that knowledge. And as crazy as it sounds, when you talk to the advanced Qurra, especially when they do the Ijaza exam, this is all they talk about. They don't talk about advanced Ghunna or the type of madhab of, well, they do sometimes, the madhab of the Ikhfa Shafawi, and this Imam said that, which is all good. Don't get me wrong. That's good to debate about. but most of the time they're actually talking about, you know, the makharij. So yeah, it's that's the most common thing. It's an-nas, not nas. So just remember that. Yeah. Next one.
Yeah. Number 5. Shaking its gunna when it's stressed, as in minal jinnati wan nas, which occurs by
Okay.
making it gunna wavy and vibrating its sound which while pronouncing it.
Okay, that's actually that's a pretty difficult one to explain. Anybody here understand what our brother said with regards to you know, jumping backwards and forwards with the gunna?
Is it so you're looking for an example of how it shakes?
Yeah, like he
Is it
basically. Yeah, go ahead.
when they say like min al jinnati wan nas?
Yeah, so here that's what the sheikh says in Tatmeen. So basically, it's kind of like you got min al jinn, and it's like whoa, you know, like slow down, bro. You know that type of. So in Arabic, we call that Tatmeen. So what happens sometimes? Some people get so carried away with like vibrating the gunna, they actually lose the hukum tajweed altogether because it's supposed to be 2 harakat long. Some people will go, oh yeah, because it sounds nice, and you know everyone's saying mashallah, I might drag it out 3 or 4. And man, like Sheikh Masawi, one of the senior scholars, do mean scholars, if they caught you with that, they'll literally lose it. So yeah, it's beautifying your voice is good, but don't get carried away. Yeah, jazakallah khair.
Yeah.
I might try to grab somebody else.
Yeah.
Jazakallah khair, bro. Actually, any person who wants to volunteer for the Ra. I think I scared everybody after that Ra lecture a couple of weeks ago.
I don't mind trying to make a fool of myself, Sheikh, if you don't mind.
Oh, don't worry, man. It's you're not really making a fool of yourself. Give it a shot, bro.
Bismillah. The most prominent mistakes which occur when pronouncing the ra. 1, changing it into a ghain or an indefinite oral sound, as in Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim.
Yeah, there's some pretty extreme mistakes. So I personally haven't come across this yet, but yeah, it's somebody has let me know. We'll do the next one, inshallah.
2, making it heavy when it should be light, and making it light when it should be heavy, as in Mudhakkir wa Maryam.
Yeah. So just remember that, you know, it's like I'm not going to explain the rules. You can go back and check the other video. But yeah, it's basically confusing the sifat. So just remember the Ra. The Ra has got the most rules on it. And it can be said light or it can be said heavy. All right, next one.
Exaggerating in number 3, exaggeration in repeating it when it is stressed or sakina, as in Ar-Razzaqu irji'u.
Yep, that's perfect. Yeah, jazakallah khair.
4, pronouncing it in tense, restrained, as in Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim.
Yep, perfect. Next.
Circling the lips. 5, circling the lips when pronouncing it, as in Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim.
So you can hear with this one, the Ra has already been mentioned, but it sounds a bit heavier or a bit weirder than normal. So yeah, don't get lips involved with the Ra. Just remember that. Next one.
6, not making it clear when it is made sakina when stopping on it, as in khusr or sihr.
Yeah, so what happens, especially sometimes when it comes to ijaza, your sheikh will pull you off on this. If a letter has a sukoon and we're reading large quantities, people will either intentionally or unintentionally leave the Ra hanging. When you're reading and you're reciting to the sheikh, you will get pulled over on this. They'll ask you sometimes, not for the sake of testing you, but they'll say, is this a heavy or a light ra? Even though it has a sukoon on it, you still have to pronounce it based on the letters, one or two letters before it, and you have to make it clear. So just remember that if it has a sukoon on it, make sure that you still pronounce it with a make it heavy or light depending where it is in the sentence.
The most prominent mistakes which occur when pronouncing at-ta and at-dal and at-ta. The letter ta. The mistakes when pronouncing it are: 1, whispering it, as in fatala, I don't know.
Yeah, so what happens, they'll say, instead of saying fatala, fatala, if you make the fatala and you make it light, it sounds, not only is it whispering it, you're making it sound close to a ta. So this is a combination of confusing the sifa and the letter. So just that's why you need to differentiate to the student. First, if you get the correct letter pronounced correctly, then the sifa will follow. So you tell them, look, there's not a ta, this is a ta. So, and then start correcting them that way. So yeah, next one.
2, making it light, as in tibaqa, tibaqan.
Yeah. So again, the only way I could make this light as subhanAllah is that it has to lean towards a ta a little bit more. Because we said ta naturally is light. And it's very close to pronunciation point of the ta, as we mentioned earlier. So again, to troubleshoot it, because they're making 2 mistakes in one, I'll try to focus on, and that's, mashallah, that's the strategy of being a really good Tajweed teacher. In order to understand Tajweed, you need to teach it yourself. So rather than telling the student, overwhelming them with every single mistake, normally I'll go for the most prominent mistake. I'll tell them, look, this is the bigger problem, and I'll get them to fix it. And as a result, mashallah, all the entire recitation is fixed accordingly. So, mashallah, they don't have to whisper the letter. They're going to get it heavy or light. Because sometimes they can get overwhelmed. You can't tell the new students, especially, even at the Tajweed level, the intermediate level, you can't tell them, oh, this is hams and this is mufakham, muraqqaq. You just say, look, this sounds more of a ta. I want you to give me a ta. And mashallah, it automatically fixes everything. So that's just a tip for you guys out there that are teaching Tajweed. Next one, inshallah.
Ad-dal, 1, mixing its sound with a hint of a ta, as in at-teeni, at-teeni.
Yeah, I know it's harder to pronounce it incorrectly. I can feel your pain. So it just comes from bad habits. So just correcting them with the right letters. Next one.
2, making it heavy, as in suduri.
Yeah. So here, there's not a mistake with the letter per se. It's only with the sifa. So they are using the same pronunciation point. You just need to tell them to take it easy. Next one.
At-ta, 1, exaggeration in whispering it when it has a haraka, as in tatawaffahumu. So exaggeration with tatawaffahumu.
Yeah, you don't want to let out too much air, because obviously if you let out too much hams, air means space and space means time. So what happens, it actually plays with, it's tatawafahum. If you start adding hams in between, it's going to drag it out a bit longer, and that's unnecessary, and you can hear the difference. So, no, it's all good.
Number 2, making it heavy, as in tatama'innu.
That is a very common one. I'm letting you guys know. It's like, if you haven't been pulled on this, just bear that in mind. It happens more frequently than you think. So just remember that. Next one.
3, neglecting to give it a whispering sound, especially when it is sakina, as in tatamara, tatamara, tatra.
Yeah, so you got tatra. If I say tatra, it sounds like it's close to the thought. You want to say tatra. You want to say tatra. Likewise with tatamara, just to keep up with the pace as well. You want to say tatamara. Allahu A'lam. It's harder sometimes to say incorrectly, but yeah. If it's a ta, give it space to breathe, but not too much. Next up.
The most prominent mistakes which occur when pronouncing the whistling letters. Number 1, weakening its whistle, as in yazaka, masjidi, as-salihina.
Yeah. So just exaggerate the whistling sound. Next up.
2, using the lower lip when pronouncing them, as in yazaka, as-salihin, as-salihin.
So just basically it's a mistake with the, obviously from where it's being pronounced. It's harder to say it incorrectly. I'm not even going to bother at this stage, to be honest. I'll just move on to the next one. Jazakallah khair.
Number 3, circling the lips when pronouncing the sad, as in as-salihin.
Yep. So yeah, try not to circle the lips, even though people don't see this. They'll be like, oh yes, I can do whatever with different parts of the mouth that I'm not using. Technically speaking, if you're not using them, that's perfectly fine, but you need to remember it can actually impact the frequency of the letter that you're pronouncing, because obviously you're letting air out from a confined space, and whether it be the lips, whether it be the vocal cords or whatever, if you change any of these, that's going to basically add or subtract a layer of you could say vocal complexity that's supposed to be associated with the sifa. So just bear in mind, only use the parts of the mouth that you have to, and nothing more. Just remember that. Yep.
4, making the sad light, as in masir.
Yep. Another confusion with the sifa, just make it heavy. Next one.
5, making the seen heavy, as in yasturuna, yasturuna.
Yep. Next one.
6, mixing the sound of seen with azda, as in rijzun masjuri wasjud.
So here, just remember, I'm not going to confuse you. It's there are other qira'at that deploy this technique. It's called ishmam. Basically, ishmam means you basically mix a letter with another letter. You got I'm not going to try to confuse you, but basically it's a technique that happens with another sort of set of qira'at. But Hafs specifically avoids doing it. There's only one place in the whole Quran that has ishmam. So unless otherwise, mashallah, that's I think the beauty of this course, especially in reciting in Hafs. You just pronounce the letter that you see in front of you, with the exception of Ra, that has heavy and light characteristics. Everything else, mashallah, is read on face value. So just remember that. Read it on face value. Other letters, they have these, you could say, strange characteristics. They'll probably have himala. They have like, instead of saying yasdifun, they say yazdifun, for example. Mashallah, Hafs, what the beauty of Hafs I found is you take it on face value. And if you can say the sa and the fa and the qaf correctly on its own, then you should be okay. So by all means, do not mix letters with others, unless in special circumstances outside of Hafs. So just remember that. Next one. Any questions so far, actually, about pronunciations? All good? We'll carry on, bro?
Sheikhna, my copy on this app does not give me the Arabic examples, only the English writing on this page only. Sorry about that.
Okay. We'll read it and I'll probably come up with some examples. Unless somebody has examples in the book. Go ahead.
Okay, inshallah, just a minute.
I have the same problem, but you can just flick to the Arabic page to check the example and flick back.
Oh, okay. Jazakallah khairan.
Yeah, next page. Yeah, sorry, bro.
No, now I've lost the page completely. Allah musta'an. Now I'm on page 1.
Yeah.
It's melting down. Maybe, sorry, Sheikh, can somebody
all.
else maybe
Well,
take over?
I'll just carry on. So basically here, pushing the, the most prominent mistakes that occur were pronouncing the gum. So here it's basically we're talking about the letters coming from the gum, or you could say around the gum or the lips, so to speak. Pushing the tongue out more than what's required when pronouncing them. Obviously, again, that's what I mean about over-exaggerating. The second one. Putting the tip of the tongue on the gums or the inner surface of the upper incisors, claiming that the gum letters are omitted from the gums. So here, basically, you're exercising rather than putting the tip of the tongue on the actual gum or the gums, that you have. You're flicking the tongue on the letters. On the teeth. This could happen, and just remember, don't always be hating on your students for doing this. This could sometimes be as a result of, let's just say, dental issues. Like, subhanAllah, the person has medically, he's been diagnosed by a dentist to have overcrowding in the front teeth. MashaAllah, not all teeth come out properly. Sometimes they can come out crooked. Sometimes there is not enough space. This is necessarily, as a result, the person grows up with this habit that they can pronounce incorrectly, just like having a lisp and whatnot. Again, this comes with practice. As far as I'm concerned, it takes a really skilled qari to get around the barrier of pronouncing things for people that actually have disabilities, so to speak. So in this case, I will make a personal exception. I am of the opinion that if it has been determined that, be it a part of the gum is missing, or part of the teeth are obstructing, let's just say, the way of pronouncing the letter, as long as the person A knows how to pronounce the thing correctly. That's number one. And B, they can pronounce the makhraj correctly, then in this case, it's perfectly fine for them to give an exception to the circumstance and let them pronounce it the way that's easy for them in order to get over the disability. This is needless to say that pronunciation has to be 100% correct. Just remember that. So just differentiate between a medical disability and somebody that just doesn't care. And once you're able to teach them, and if you can hear it correctly, then by all means carry on, inshallah. So I hope they explained that part. So I just thought I'd clarify it to you guys. This isn't always by choice. SubhanAllah, due to some deformation of the gums or the teeth, the person can have pronunciation issues, and you have to take that into account. And the unlikely extreme circumstance, and this happens very early, the person can never say the letter correctly. And they are pronouncing every single thing 100% correct and can't make a single mistake. And this, but they can, A, they know how to pronounce the letter correctly, and B, they can get people to read the letter correctly 100%. Then they can be even given a special ijazah at that circumstance, provided that you do not learn the specific letter from them. So I hope I've clarified all the rulings around the gums and the teeth. Just bear in mind, people will have problems pronouncing things. Your job is to help make their life easy by getting them to read correctly. And if it's been established that there is a disability, then you have to take that into account also. So hopefully explain that part. Yes, so let's get back to the English part. So here, another mistake, changing the Dad with a Sad. As we said, you got a Zalimin. You don't want to say Zalimin. We said it earlier. And here's all the examples here are Abdal, swapping. You don't want to swap that with a za, like Zakirin. It's supposed to be Zakirin. Same thing with a tha. You don't want to say فَكَثَّرَكُمْ. It's فَكَثَّرَكُمْ. فَكَثَّرَكُمْ, he increased you in numbers. As the ayah says, you don't want to say فَكَثَّرَكُمْ, he broke you. These are really huge mistakes. And it's up to you to find out whether it's actually a genuine disability because of the gums or the teeth, or the person just doesn't care, or they might need practice. Okay, next up.
I can continue if you want, Sheikh.
Bismillah. We'll do page 112. We're getting to near the end of the class. Or, yeah. Oh, you got the same problem, do you?
No,
Reading
this one is fine.
Okay, go for it.
The most prominent mistakes which occur when pronouncing the fa. 1, not making it clear due to weakness of its whisper, the hums, as in فَكَثَّرَكُمْ, so, or تَفْعَلُونَ, tough. I don't know how to make that a mistake.
You'll say تفعلون. It's supposed تفعلون. So you have to let out there at the end. Again, don't stress too much about it. The next one is a really common one though.
2, changing it into a sound like that of the letter V, as in what ضفادع.
Exactly. This is a really common one. And if you have to practice it 10 times before you read for the ijaza, go for it. It's not ضفادع, fa, not va. It's really easy for some reason to say V in this situation. And just keep practicing it out. Next one.
Mistakes which occur when pronouncing the non-lengthening vowel. 1, making it heavy when it occurs besides a heavy letter, as in wa.
Yep.
Yeah. Wallahu.
Yeah. Next.
2, not circling the lips completely when pronouncing it, as in wakana.
Yeah, you don't want to say what, it's where. Yeah.
3, excessive pressure on the lips, especially when it is stressed, which adds a noise to it as a result of excessive narrowness of the articulation point, as in qawwamina khawanan.
Yeah, so you don't want to say qawwami, it's qawwamina. Same thing with khawanan. You don't want to say khawanan, So it's like, don't drag it out more than necessary. Next one.
So the most prominent mistakes which occur when pronouncing the ba and meme.
Yep.
The letter ba, number 1, whispering it, as in bismillahi.
Yep. Next up.
2, making it heavy when it occurs besides a heavy letter, as in batilu, al-batilu.
It's batil, not batil. Yep.
3, giving it qalqala when it is sakin, as in yubasirun. Or not giving it qalqala, not giving it yubasirun.
Yep.
The meme. 1, cutting off its sound when stopping on it until it becomes almost a ba, as in ar-rahim.
Ar-Rahim. That's a really difficult one. Just go to the next one.
Ar-Rahim.
Yeah, we're making other mistakes now.
I
guess. That's all right. I mean, the mistakes here are valid in this case. We're trying to, not read it incorrectly. That's all good. Next one.
2, making it heavy when it occurs besides a heavy letter, as in mahmasatin.
Yeah, so it's supposed to be mahmasah, not mahmasah.
3, giving it qalqala when it is sakina, as in yamataruna an'amata.
Yep.
Okay. And inshallah, the meeting of 2 letters, idgham. You'd like to start idgham?
I think that's basically it, really. It's actually a good place to stop, because the drama is a completely new chapter. So, so far, any questions about pronunciation? We'll call it a day, inshallah. Any questions about pronunciation and sifat in general? Because alhamdulillah, this is a very brief summary of the common mistakes, but it's not limited to these mistakes. You might find you might have more common mistakes in certain areas than others, but this is just a brief overview of, how to say the letters as we said them in the past, and the correct sifat, And this is just how not to say them and what you might do to try to troubleshoot your pronunciation and the pronunciation of your students. Since we're wrapping up this section, because mashallah, 115 pages is quite a lot for the first big part of Tajweed, so to speak. Does anybody have any questions about safat or letters in general from anything we've covered so far in the book?
Also, I can see there is a barcode on each page. So can we hear the mistakes using this app, or it's only the correct pronunciation we can hear from the app?
It's actually a good point. I haven't really tried picking out the incorrect ones. Like I've listened to the video section of the course, and I think it's easier that way. But I don't know if you go over the QR code, if it's gonna have an incorrect or a correct way of saying it. So I'd like to think they'll put the correct way of saying it so they don't confuse you.
Yeah, exactly.
There is probably a strong reason as to why they don't want to put the incorrect recitation, but yeah, don't stress about it. At the end of the day, as long as you can read it correctly, it's all good. So
Actually, why I'm asking, because if one of us, teaching someone else and he asked this question, so it's very hard to, make incorrect. So we should have
exactly.
something, so we can explain them. We can differentiate between the incorrect and the correct one.
Yeah, I think the reason why they might not have the incorrect pronunciation saved is what usually traditionally happens as a Tajweed teacher is your job is to listen to the audio, and mashallah, because people come to see you basically for your knowledge on how to troubleshoot their pronunciation. So what do I mean by this? I had one student, this was 15 years ago actually. It wasn't even my student. Oh, I think you were there, Musa, at one point. It was over in Newlands. So it's basically he was a kid and couldn't differentiate between the hat and the hat. And the reason why the students come to see you is because you know, mashallah, enough of the human anatomy and articulation points to the point where you can actually help them fix that mistake. So it's easier to kind of tell them, look, you need to actually use this part of the mouth, stress on this over here. You compare it to their background knowledge, like say with the calf, I like to compare it to the K because they can relate to it in English. And this is not just something I do. This is even one of my chefs did. Like we're talking about hams, you'd be saying the word ink in English. So mashallah, it's about you using the combination of techniques to help deliver a message to help them pronounce the correct tajweed. So the reason why they can't write every single mistake, like mashallah, I kid you not, this isn't even 1% of what we hear incorrectly. So it's actually, there's so many incorrect variations out there. Like you can't fit them in the book. So the trick is to get around it. I tell people is rather than focusing on this chapter, this is actually a good guide. But what we tell people is if you can focus on the sifat, the other 90 pages, it's really going to help you be better able to troubleshoot. So yeah, don't stress if you can't find any examples in that short guide of incorrect pronunciation. Chances are, mashallah, that by you having the correct background, you can help them correct it. So it's this is just like a general guide, So it's yeah, I hope that answers your question, but sorry I don't really have a satisfying answer, so to speak.
No, Jazakallah khair, Sheikh.
All good. Any more questions about pronunciation or makharij in general? All good. I'll probably wrap up with a wrapping statement. So, by all means necessary, this is the most important thing that you will cover in Tajweed, whether you are a qari, even up to the level of muqri, and you actually sit down, you have your own halaqa and ijaza, you're authorized to teach Quran at Tajweed level. This is probably the most scary part of Tajweed. Meaning, if you don't make a mistake in the rest of the book, which is the remaining 150 pages, you'll certainly make it in the past 100 pages. This thing does take practice, and it took me at least 20 years of practice before I did my first ijazah. It doesn't mean that you can't and you will not be able to get up to what I did. Our main aim as the Quran teachers is to make life as easy for you as possible, which is why we try to maybe push you and help you with enough hard work and research, inshallah, rather than you spending 10 and 20 years like some of us did. Inshallah, you can do that in 2 or 3 years. So, but the emphasis is strictly on practice. And by practice, I don't mean just memorize the thing. Like, I mean, I do mean it. If you're ever going to read it at Jaza level, you need to at least read the same section 20 times over, just to actually make sure you got the correct pronunciation. Best example is that Dr. Ayman Swed said, Khalid ibn Ahmad al-Farahidi, who's one of the heads of not only just Tajweed, but the Arabic language and grammar, it was said that he used to taste the Arabic letters, sit down and go, wa, so, and break it down in every single form. And mashallah, they wrote the art that we have here before of us. So mashallah, although it's 100 pages that you see in front of you, it's actually taken over 1,450 years to produce something of this quality. So when you think about it, it's 1,500 years. It's a lot of time to summarize 100 pages. So by all means, you're not limited to this. But mashallah, the easiest thing to help you with makharij is if you listen to them on a regular basis, whether it be once a day or once a week. That's the best advice I have. So keep listening to tapes or videos or whatever they are. Keep practicing saying it to yourself. And mashallah, with the right guidance, and inshallah, I'm hoping your Sheikh and Qari can help you achieve your recitation goals. So yeah, I think I said what I had to say for the past 100 pages. And I'm guessing I'll call it today unless anyone else has any questions. Alhamdulillah, that's all good. Inshallah, we'll start a new section. Inshallah, we'll start with the other ahkam of Tajweed. Alhamdulillah, we just finished the makharij and the sifat and the articulation points. This has been a big achievement for everybody, so jazakumullah khair. Inshallah, we're going to start, I'm not saying a whole new section, but these are what you can call as the rules of Tajweed that are specific to Hafs, and we'll take them one by one, inshallah. And you're gonna definitely, if you survive the makharij, then that one's definitely gonna be a lot easier, inshallah. So jazakumullah khair for all your patience. I really appreciate it.
Jazakallah khair.
Thank you, Ustad. Jazakallah khairan on behalf of all of us for taking us through that first part.
Alhamdulillah, appreciate it, guys. Inshallah, be in touch. If you have any questions, just click them in the question section and chat, and we'll take it from there, inshallah. Subhanallah wa hamdik. Subhanakallahumma wa hamdik. Jazakumullah khair.
Jazakumullah khair.
Assalamu alaikum.
Thanks.